Hi, good evening. In Eastern Standard Time, it's evening, and if you're in Israel time, it's early morning. I'm Mayor Weinstein, and I'm joined with Baruch Ben-Yoseph, and we're doing the Torah Parsha, Parsha's Torah, live from Harbite, live from the temple. This Parsha is very significant. We can learn a lot in terms of what is going on today with Israel and what we find in the Parsha. And Baruch will expand on this. So this Parsha, Moses is recounting everything that happened when the Jews left Egypt, the travels in the wilderness, desert, and that Joshua is going to lead the Jewish people to Israel. And the focus is on Israel, and the borders are delineated uh, in this parsha, borders of Israel. They're a lot larger than what the state of Israel is today, in fact. And we have, there was an interview on I-24 News the other day where one of the founders of the Peace Now movement was interviewed, uh, Yoriv Oppenheimer, and he said in the interview, if we destroy Israel in the process of our campaign against this coalition government, so be it. That kind of rhetoric is an abomination as far as the Torah is concerned. And when you read the Parsha and with the ideals and that God's giving us Israel, and after 2,000 years of wandering in exile and culminating with the Holocaust, that we have Israel, uh, we should embrace it fully. And there was an election, and the longest serving prime minister is in charge of this current government. Uh, we should be thrilled and just filled with such unbelievable joy that we have a state of Israel, and we have to make it better and more Jewish and have Jewish law ultimately rule Israel. And what's taking place on Har HaBayit, that's certainly should be a goal and a focus of the Jewish people. That we've spoken about this a lot on our podcast about Hamas rallies taking place there. But anyways, there's a lot to say. And Baruch, how are you
Yeah,
today?
great. How you doing? It's hot here.
Good.
Very hot in Israel this week.
Mhm.
But you know what? This kind of heat that I like. It's nice and dry. I don't like the humidity, so it's all right.
Just have to
It's all
drink
right.
some fluids.
Yeah, you got to drink. The Prime Minister Netanyahu was walking on Shabbat, and
Right.
he got what do you call it? Dehydrated. Had to go to the hospital. So
Yes.
yep, it is very hot here. Um, Maybe it's a sign of the times. Shem is Shem is what do you call it? Raising the heat. Raising
Yep.
the heat. The people that, like they said, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Right.
Get out of the land. You can't take the heat. So we're up here. This is the second week of the 3 weeks. We're in the middle of the second week of the 3 weeks that was started on the 17th of Tammuz with the fast. And right before tomorrow is, of course, Rosh Chodesh Av, Menachem Av. Uh, the month begins in terrible calamity for the Jewish people. And as we get after Tisha B'Av, we get to the greatest days, the 15th of Av. It's called Tu B'Av. So we're here. We're here on the 3 weeks remembering the destruction of the first and second temples. Not because we want to rebuild the first and second temples, we want to build the third temple. It's a different temple, as mentioned in the book of Yechezkel, and interpreted by the famous Ramchal, Rabbi Luzzatto. And we want to build the third temple, which is different than the first and second. But maybe temporarily, when we get the chance, we'll start building the replica. We're building a temple according to the measurements of the second temple, which we have written down. course, in the tractate of Midot, measurements, and brought down by the Rambam, by Maimonides in Halacha. But the real goal is to get to the third temple, which is a much bigger temple. It's a much bigger building, and it encompasses a lot larger area than the first and second temple. So that's an important point that we should always think about, that we're praying for the third temple. In fact, we're told that in the time of when they started rebuilding the second temple, in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, and when they came back from Babylon, they were actually, the second temple was supposed to be the final temple. There wasn't supposed to be three temples. It was supposed to be two, and that was supposed to be the final temple. Unfortunately, the Jews, for the most part, didn't come back. Only a handful came back. 42,000 out of the millions of people that there were, and a lot of them weren't really such great, weren't very righteous. A lot of them were assimilated, intermarried, and we were basically under the auspices of the Persian emperor. And we're told because of that reason, the second temple was not the final temple. When they started building the second temple, they tried to put in certain elements of the third temple. They did put a few elements into it, but for the most part, it was more or less resembled the first temple. Of course, later on, it was refurbished and made one of the most beautiful buildings in history by the terrible King Herod towards the end of the Second Temple period. So in any event, we're here. The portion of the week is, of course, we're beginning now the book of Deuteronomy, of Devarim. We finished last week Numbers, Bamidbar. And now Devarim it's more or less, we call it the fifth and final book of the Torah. And Moshe Rabbeinu begins the book by giving us a review. It's basically a review of Jewish history from the time that we left Egypt as a nation, right? Before that, when we went down to Egypt, we were a family, basically a family of from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and with 70 Jews came down to Egypt, and after we were in Egypt for basically 216 years. Although the Torah mentions different periods of time. There's some, in one place it says 430 years, in another place it says 400 years, it says 216 years, it says 100 and something. And it's interesting. This is a very important point that Rabbi Kahana brings down. We'll talk about it. So it begins off with us leaving Egypt. Now, why are there different? Why does the Torah mention different time periods that we were held in bondage in Egypt? So Rabbi Kahana, of course, one of his main principles is that we're in the time of the final redemption, and there are two ways, according to the prophet Isaiah, which is the prophet of the redemption, basically. His prophecies are prophecies of redemption, and he said that there's two ways of redemption. One way is, well, the end comes, and there's no time left. And if there's no redemption now, then there's destruction, total destruction. Or the alternative is the real way, the right way is that we merit the redemption by our acts, by us serving Hashem, by us keeping His Torah, by doing acts of total faith and trust in Hashem, Mesirut Nefesh, giving our souls, and by doing that, we'll merit the redemption, and then Hashem will bring it speedily, without suffering, but through great miracles. So those are the two options. But Rabbi Kahana says, and this is a very important point that has to be mentioned, is that Rabbi Kahana talks about a third option, which is not mentioned in Isaiah, but it's basically that even though we didn't merit, we didn't all do tshuva, we didn't all suddenly start keeping Shabbat, and and we didn't all come back to the land, so we didn't merit it. But and there's still the end time hasn't come yet, but we can speed up the end time by our acts. So in other words, okay, we weren't 100%, we were 75%. 75% is a passing mark, okay, and and the 75% will merit us speeding up the end time. In other words, just like in Egypt, the Jews were supposed to be there for 400 years, and some say 430 years, but they sped up the end time in two ways. There are two ways to speed up the end time. One is through our acts, okay, again, not 100%, but it's not zero, so we get some reward for that by and that speeds up the time. It also has to do with our enemies, the nation, the enemies of Israel who persecute us aren't supposed to persecute us, even if we're in exile. We're exiled from the land, but they're not supposed to persecute us. The persecution speeds up the end time. So the Egyptians started. Remember, it was in the beginning. It was actually very nice, the exile in Egypt, and then it started getting worse and worse till finally, then they started throwing the male children into the sea, and the whole
Great.
the whole story.
Great.
But the Jews started screaming out to Hashem because of the pain of the exile, of the servitude and the persecution. So that sped it up. So we have two things that can influence the end time a period, which again are our acts and are the acts of the enemies. So definitely in our era, when we're in the final redemption, the period of the final redemption, that's what it kind of tells us, and the prophecies tell us, and we see it. Anybody who doesn't see that we're in the process of the final redemption is totally blind. Like we said before, people that
Absolutely.
think that we're just here by accident, an act of the Satan, as they say, some of the very very religious Orthodox people. Um, Anybody who thinks that obviously doesn't know anything about the prophecies, doesn't know anything about the what the rabbis tell us about the redemption, and it's totally blind. I mean, we didn't by accident just come back here and build a state and an army and conquer lands, and we're just standing here before on the Temple Mount. 2,000 years for the most part, Jews were kept out of the Temple Mount,
Right.
forced out. I mean, there were periods of
And
time.
let me just add something. Because you mentioned during the Second Temple, the percentage of Jews, well, didn't say exactly what the percentage number was, but it was the majority of the Jews stayed in exile. The greater majority of Jews stayed in exile. And today we have over 7 million Jews and counting living in Israel. And, according to some censuses, they say there might be 14 million Jews in the world. There probably is less when you really define what is a Jew. Probably is less, but let's say there is 14 million, and we're climbing over 7 million. So the majority of Jews actually are in Israel, and some people will say maybe there's 15 million Jews in the world or something like that. But anyways, we're getting to that point, that tipping point, that during the Second Temple period, they didn't have that mass of Jews living in Israel, and not only that, but the transformation of Israel from a real socialist kibbutz society to an economic powerhouse now, what it is, and how beautiful and gorgeous Israel has become now with the technology and everything else going on. For someone to say that this is the act of the Satan, not to see with your own eyes the development, it's like, pinch me, am I awake? Really, it's unbelievable. So you're
What's amazing is
100%.
they just came out with the report that they were saying how The legislation of the reform is the judicial reform is going to what? The judicial reform is going to cause the economy to fall and this and that and in the end the economy is only getting stronger.
Yeah,
The shekel is getting stronger against the dollar and the euro. I mean it's just incredible. It's just incredible. It's just incredible. Um,
it is. And you have companies now bidding for gas rights, drilling. I mean, it's who would think that?
right, right. Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely. I mean, and a lot of people want to say, well, the state of Israel was created by these irreligious Jews. How could it be the final redemption from Hashem? But as Rabbi Kahana was told, it was the exact opposite. It was specifically because it was irreligious Jews
Yeah,
is why it shows that it's from Hashem, because he says that if it was the religious Jews, they always find an excuse why not to do it. Pikuach
exactly.
nefesh, it's too dangerous. We can't take the risk.
Let me give you
It's
this
it's
argument.
right. So I mean, it's just amazing when you really you see that's the I live in a community that's basically we do have obviously people that you know were followers of Rabbi Kahana, but for the most part, it's followers of Rabbi Cook. So at the very least, I can say about them is that they are in tune to the fact that we're in the final redemption. They do love Eretz Yisrael. They do understand the concept behind that Rabbi Kahana spoke about the fact that you know that it was Hashem's plan to have people like Ben Gurion declare the state, and not the chief rabbi. Uh, but um, unfortunately, the rabbis have disappointed us over the years. Uh, I read an article this past Shabbat about Rabbi Herzog, who's the first chief rabbi of Israel, who was the grandfather of the present president of Israel,
Right.
Yitzhak Herzog, and the father of the former president of Israel, Chaim Herzog. And I mean, Rabbi Herzog, compared to what we have today, is just unbelievable. I mean, he does really great things, and he tore up the white paper, the British, the white paper that they issued against Jews coming into the land, and he stood up to the British. The, they sent there was told he was told by the British that they wanted Jews to work on Shabbat, the religious Jews to work on Shabbat for making bombs or something like that, and the factory was making bombs or mines or something, and because they were afraid the Germans were going to come into the land. He told the British general. He said, "Don't worry, they're not coming into the land. There is no third exile. This is the final redemption. They're not coming into the land. Hashem won't let them, and we're not gonna. And the thing that'll protect us is us guarding Shabbat, not working on Shabbat. And of course, it says that the general left with like faith that, well, if the rabbi said that, then I guess he knows what he's talking about. And they found a way around the Jews working on Shabbat, and ultimately, of course, we know what happened. That miraculously the Germans were stopped in the battle in El Alamein in Egypt. They never got into the land, um, and so just like we're told, by the prophets and the rabbi, of course, spoke about all the time. There is no third exile. This is the final redemption,
Right.
and we're here to stay. And the question is we're here to stay, but what is our life going to be here like? Is it going to be like we said before? Is it going to be with suffering, or is it going to be glorious and great and happy because we did what Hashem wanted, or because we didn't do what Hashem wanted? That's where we stand. It's in our hands.
Right.
Hashem gave us the game plan, and that's our job to make it work. So again, going back to the portion, it's really when you look at it, it's a review of the history of the Jews from the time of leaving Egypt. The A lot of bad things happened in the desert. Of course, we know a lot of sins, a lot of calamities, a lot of People die there. Ultimately, the sin of the he goes very deeply into the sin of the spies more than any other sin, because obviously the spies who says actually Moshe said that he liked the idea. He thought it was a good idea. They came to him with the idea. We want to spy out the land. He thought it was a good idea because he never, I guess, he never dreamed that they would come back with the report
Yeah.
that they gave, or at least if they came back with a bad report, they would come back to him and report to him because he sent them, and not go and report it to the people behind his back, which was, really the probably the main their main sin was that, even if somebody, it could be they went into spy and they misunderstood what they saw. So you talk to the leader who sent you, and you try to figure out, lots of times you can have information and you didn't understand
Right.
what it meant. And instead of doing that, they went and reported directly to the people and told them what they thought, and they caused the people then to rebel.
Yeah.
And by then it was too late for Kalev and Yoshua and Moshe and Aaron to stop the rebellion. It's like again, well, it's like today, in today's day, you know, these guys started protesting and rioting and blocking roads and all that, and because they didn't stop it right away, it kept going on and on and on and getting worse. You can't, you got to nip it in the bud, as they say. You can't allow uh, 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 the people to revolt and rebel and do nothing about it. And the spies, in actuality, you know, I mean, had it was too late by the time that because they went ahead and told the people and caused a rebellion. But somehow it should have been stopped before they got the chance. I mean, Kalev already knew during the trip that they were going to give this bad report, and he played along as if he's one of them, so they wouldn't kill him. And he tried to undo what they did, but again, it was too late. And
Right.
because of that, they spent 30 years in the 38 more years in the desert instead of coming to the land um, after they built the Mishkan, uh, after the sin of the golden calf and building the Mishkan and so on. In fact, it's in the portion goes on to talk about that they came to the land of the Edomites and the Moabites, and they had a circle around, and it all dragged out for 38 years. And it says they came to a place called the stream of Zered, the stream of Zered. And it says that it took 38 years for them to get to the stream of Zered. Now, stream of Zered is the border of coming to the land of Israel on the eastern side of Eretz Israel, meaning the where the tribes of Ruvain, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh settled. And the rabbi say to us, he says, the stream of Zered was this pitsy little stream that you could just walk over.
Yep.
And it says 38 years they couldn't pass the stream, because when Hashem makes a commandment, makes a decree, even a little stream like that can stop them. But if Hashem wants you to go, you could, like the splitting of the Red Sea and the Jordan and all these miracles he did. If he wants you to go, you can go. It doesn't Nothing will stop you. It's a very important lesson in Jewish history. It's if you're doing the right thing, Hashem will miraculously take care of you, whether you see the miracles or not. And if you're not doing the right thing, you're not gonna,
Right.
even a little stream that you can walk over will stop you. And it's like when I was in my first reserves duty in the army in what was that, 1980, in the Sinai Desert. Um, it was at Sharm el Sheikh, which is the tip of the Sinai Peninsula. And I was new in the unit, but I had served in Sharm el Sheikh during my regular army duty, and so the officer in charge of the unit didn't wasn't familiar with where you go swimming and where you go snorkeling, and uh, so I took him, and I took two officers, my direct officer and the main officer. took him to where we could go swimming and snorkeling. So after we do some swimming, I sit down and we're sitting down, we're talking and eating, and he started telling me about that he had been in the Yom Kippur War as a tank commander, and it's actually the unit that I had served in the regular army in the tank unit, and he said that the entire tank unit had been wiped out except for his tank, and I, across from him, he was, they were confronting a Egyptian tank. What do you call it? Not a platoon, but a tank.
Squadron?
A tank brigade, or I don't know, whatever. But it was, let's say about he was facing about 30 tanks by
Right.
himself. So he told us how he outmaneuvered them. Him one tank outmaneuvered 30 tanks and caused them to take off and flee. I said, "Tell me, that's not a religious man." I said to him, "Tell me, is that a miracle? Isn't that a miracle from Hashem?" He said, "Yeah, it's a miracle from Hashem, but I'm also a good tank commander." They couldn't just leave it at that, you know.
Yeah.
You had to put that in there because I mean, come on, the best tank commander in the world is not going to outmaneuver 30 tanks
Right.
unless he's got some kind of you know supervision from above, as they say.
Right.
So that's really when you read the portion. Again, the Torah is not a book of history, as we're told. It's a book of ideas. So Rabbi kind of called it the yeshiva of the Jewish idea, and there was his book called the light of the idea. The whole thing is ideas and
Yep.
commandments and so on. But in history itself, we can learn a lot about faith and trust and how we're supposed to serve Hashem. Not because the history is important. The facts are, the 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 idea behind the history is what's important, and that's why it's important to read and understand the recounting of the story by Moshe Rabbeinu. And interesting also is that there are there are differences to the stories. Like for instance, the story about the spies. There are might be additions to the story, things that weren't mentioned in the original accounting of the story. Because now Moshe is giving his accounting. So, for instance, the original story doesn't say that Moshe liked the idea, but here it says, "I like the idea." You know what I'm saying? There are things that we can learn the second time around that weren't clear to us, and a lot of questions are answered the second time around when Moshe is recounting the story. So, um, you could say, "Well, what do you need to hear the story twice for?"
Hmm.
But there are important reasons for it. In fact, in the Bible, there's the last book of the Bible is called Chronicles, right? Chronicles is a book that most people don't learn, but it's a very important book. And we're told that the book of Chronicles it like recounts the entire history of the world, the Jewish people, from the time of creation. It's like you say to yourself, okay, we have all that already. We have all this written down through the 5 books of Moses and the prophets, the first prophets, the second prophets. We have all this. What do we need now? A book of Chronicles
Hmm.
to retell the story. And again, the story there could be additions and things that are different. So rabbis tell us that the book of Chronicles is in order for us to what we call doresh. It's for us to bring out ideas like in the midrash, bring out ideas that we wouldn't see from the original recounting of the story, the telling of the story in the other books of the Bible,
Yeah.
and that we need this final book to tell us all kinds of to reveal to us all kinds of things that only the rabbis could, the sages could try to figure out from comparing the two versions. So we have this whole book that basically it allows us to better understand of what was going on and why things happened the way they happened, and and what we're supposed to get out of the whole Bible, the whole understanding of the written Torah, and so we see already in the Bible the importance of the oral law, of the unwritten Torah, of our sages, learning parables and whatnot from the. So the rabbi's about to talk. Are we cutting it here? Is this the?
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna do half an hour each time now. So okay, Baruch. Well, thank you very much. We'll continue with the next Parsha next week. It's great that we do this from Harabayat. We're making a contribution to really establish a presence for Jews to not only pray but to learn and to do much more and to gather a momentum there.
Yep, absolutely. That's what we need. We need awareness throughout the world, throughout the Jewish people. Awareness, temple awareness, Temple Mount awareness, final redemption awareness.
Yes.
It's all. We can't have final redemption without the Temple Mount, without the temple, without the sacrifices,
Absolutely.
without the service of the Kohanim and Levim. And that's what we're doing here. We're not here for, we're not tourists. We're not here for, to have fun. People coming here, they're taking off from work and school and whatever they're doing to be here and to make this presence.
Absolutely.
And thank God. I mean, thank God to this program that we have. It forces me to be here every week, which I would come often, but not consistently every week, which is good now that I'm here every week.
We reach people. We reach Jews all over the place.
They have to spread. Everybody's it's their job. Everybody's job is to spread the word.
Yes.
Get more people into it to understand. A lot of people don't know still that you can come up to the Temple Mount. They think it's forbidden. They think it's dangerous. They think it's, there are all kinds of fallacies, fake news out there, which prevent people from. So when people come to Israel, it should be part of their plan, their program. They can hook up. You can send them to me. They can contact me. They can contact other people. Find out what they have to do in order to come up. And that's it.
Absolutely. Okay, Baruch, thank you very much. And we'll continue next week with the next Parsha. Thank you very much. I'm Meir Weinstein. Baruch Ben-Yoseph was with us. Please share this on whatever social media platform you use, be it Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Share it on your WhatsApp groups. Thank you very much.